Hi, and welcome back to Traffic Jam Live News. Traffic Jam Live shines a spotlight on the shadow of human trafficking right here in the U.S. Very few have any idea how serious the situation is for girls, children under the age of 18, right here in the U.S. with human trafficking. There's a thing called Metcalfe's Law that says the value, the power of a network is proportional to the squared number of people in that network. Okay, that's a mouthful, that's a formula, but the gist is you add value, you add power to that network. So if you're new or relatively new to Traffic Jam Live, we encourage you to subscribe, like, share these posts, share posts of other anti-trafficking organizations. That's where we build the value, the teamwork that can take on and disrupt and dismantle human trafficking. Today, we've got Sophia Flott-Warner and her interview with Megan Cutter, the director of the National Human Trafficking Hotline at Polaris. Two amazing women doing significant things in the battle against human trafficking. Thank you, Sophia.
Thanks, Bo. Our guest today is Megan Cutter. She's the director of the Polaris-operated U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline. What admirable work Megan does. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you, Sophia. I'm just so happy to be here with you today.
What would you tell any person watching who is a victim or survivor, and you can speak to both, in the world of human trafficking?
Yeah. I think the first thing is, you're not alone. And whenever you're ready to reach out and to get help, there are resources like the National Human Trafficking Hotline that are there to listen, to answer questions, to provide support. And also that, what you've experienced is real, and we believe you. The resources that exist to help will believe you. And, whenever you're ready, we're here. And I think also that one of the things that is important for the trafficking hotline when someone reaches out for help is to provide choice about what you want to see happen next. And so knowing that if you reach out to a resource like the trafficking hotline is that you'll have choices, and that if you do decide to reach out, if you are ready, that no one is going to put whatever happens next on you. That's a choice that you get to make in the recovery process. And I think that's hugely important.
So would you please share with us a victory, a good story, a good outcome that you and your organization have recently experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are really the things I think that, help keep us going. So we recently actually heard from someone who had contacted the hotline a couple of years ago, and we connected them with resources and helped them with what they needed. And they let us know that since they talked to us, they've left their trafficking situation, moved on, begun their healing process. They went to school, they've got a job, they've got a support system. I mean, this was like the nicest email I've ever read. Look at, what we were able to do. And that was a really amazing moment to be able to share with the team, and also to be able to hear from this person about their experience, and, to be grounded in the impact that the trafficking hotline can have. So we're really grateful for that. And we're grateful for anyone who does choose to reach back out, because, reaching out to us is often one of the harder moments that people face. And so to be willing to reach out and say, hey, I'm willing to revisit that because I'd like to say thank you is very meaningful.
We want to start by shattering some common myths and misconceptions about human trafficking. Would you share that with us, Megan?
One of the most common misconceptions that we hear at Polaris and through the National Human Trafficking Hotline is that human trafficking happens when someone kidnaps a random adult or child kind of off the street in this random act. And, although that does sometimes happen, that's really not the vast majority of trafficking situations. Trafficking is often perpetrated by someone who knows the victim, whether it's someone who's a friend, a family member, an intimate partner, may even be someone that the victim loves and trusts. And what traffickers do is use that love and trust to exert power and control over the individuals they exploit. So I think that's a really good place to start in terms of myths and misconceptions, because particularly around what we see in the media about trafficking is sometimes that it's like someone gets snatched off the street, and that's just really not the nature of this crime.
So your work is focused specifically on the hotline. Would you share with our audience a little about the hotline and how it works?
Of course. So since 2007, Polaris has operated the U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline, and it's a program of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So it's funded in part by the U.S. government, but operated independently by Polaris, a nonprofit. It's also supported in part by private donations. And the hotline is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year resource for victims and survivors, those who are supporting them, those who maybe are adjacent to a trafficking situation in some way and are looking for support. And people can reach out to us via phone, text message. We have an online chat function. There's also a online reporting form that people can fill out. And you can also email the hotline. So there's lots of different ways for folks to reach out to us if they're seeking help for themselves or for someone else.
That's pretty amazing. You guys do a whole lot through just the hotline. I love it. I love it. So, are there any trends that you're seeing emerge through the hotline as you do all this work?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that's, I think, unique and interesting about the National Human Trafficking Hotline is that it can serve as a lens into how trafficking happens in the United States and what trafficking looks like. An important caveat is that the purpose of the hotline is not to collect data or information. So our first priority is always helping victims and survivors. And that means we only ask questions that we need to ask in order to support them. And we're not asking the same standard set of questions on every call. So our data is useful, but certainly not exhaustive. And there are, areas of it that could be a little stronger if we were to be focused on data, but that's not our goal. Connections between COVID and vulnerability and how we know that populations who are the most vulnerable in our society are the most impacted by COVID. That's also true of trafficking. Traffickers exploit vulnerability. So when we see something like the pandemic, it's this magnified effect. So that's a trend I'd really highlight because it's very timely and important, and I think can help us understand how to support survivors in this moment.
One thing I really admire is that your organization has a strong focus on survivors. Would you tell us how you incorporate their expertise from their lived experience into crafting solutions to helping them?
Absolutely. And this is a really core piece of the way that Polaris does its work and something that we think is really, really important. And so the first thing is just to know that we believe that survivors are the true experts in their situations. And so we really think that working alongside and in partnership with survivors is the way to develop solutions to combat trafficking because they know, what might have worked for them, what type of support they might have needed or still need, and also, have this lived experience. And that's really significant.